The Sony PlayStation 5 Pro. It's here, it's on its way, but what does it mean for gamers going forward here for the rest of 2024 and into the future? Now, most of us here, at least in the tech community, play our games on a PC. So for the most part, the announcement is persona non grata unless you are, determined to get your gaming experience on a PlayStation 5 specifically, not say an Xbox Series XX or a PlayStation 4 Pro or even a previous generation Xbox. Like, you are determined to play all of your games on a PlayStation, right? In this case, a PlayStation 5 or a PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, that is perfectly fine, but the announcement last week that Sony dropped on us that the Sony PlayStation 5 Pro, let's start from the beginning here. First of all, pre-orders will start towards the end of this month, and the console is set to drop about November 7th of 2024, right before the holiday season commences. And the console is going to drop at a price of $699 USD. And essentially, how does that correlate from the previous generation PlayStation? Right? So the PlayStation 5 Pro biggest improvements will come in the form of a faster GPU, about 57% faster, and faster memory, about 45% faster, somewhere along the lines there, to which Sony is touting as a 45% overall rendering performance uplift versus the previous PlayStation 5 relative to the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, there's also going to be some enhancements made to previous generation titles that were on both the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, if you will, if that's something you're interested in. Again, most of these games are available or accessible over on the PC. So arguably, if you're even considering getting the PlayStation 5 Pro, then fam, we're not even having a conversation about, say, missing out on exclusive Microsoft titles or other third-party games, right, that won't make their way over to the PlayStation 5 Pro or the PlayStation platform in general. That used to be me. I used to want a PlayStation simply because of PlayStation exclusives, but that's slowly becoming a dying facade, thank goodness, as many of Sony's best exclusives have made their way over to the PC, and that's where I prefer to play them. In a live stream, I talked about how my PlayStation 5 kind of collects dust and that I'm only holding on to it to play GTA 6 next year or whenever it comes out, but I'm essentially holding on to my PlayStation 5 to play GTA 6 essentially because all the games that are available on the PlayStation 5 I can play on the PC. And of course, quite naturally, just piggybacking off of a lot of things we preach here in this community, the experience is going to be a more favorable one by playing some of those games over on the PC. Are they timed exclusives? Absolutely. Why is that? Because Sony has to justify them selling consoles. If they drop their exclusives day one over on, say, a Windows launcher, right, a Sony Windows launcher, then most gamers are going to be more inclined to pick said title up over on the PC first before even considering picking up a console. One would argue, especially many of Xbox fans, but one would argue that this happened in this previous generation with the Xbox Series XX, with Microsoft and the Game Pass being popular, popular options for gamers to pick up and build their category or their library of games, myself included. So with Xbox or Microsoft dropping all their exclusives day one, say Starfield, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, dropping their exclusives on Windows day one, there's really no reason at all for me to own an Xbox. And that could very much well be the case for you. You could be the type of gamer, right, who wants to not be limited to exclusives for the sake of, or that being the reason why you own a particular console. You might play a wide range of different games that are essentially available on all of the three core platforms, Sony, Microsoft, and PC. I love the Nintendo Switch, don't get me wrong, super niche though, but I love the Nintendo Switch, but their games are, exclusive for the Switch. And if you really want to play Nintendo titles, no matter what, fam, you gotta go pick up a Nintendo Switch. But for the most part, a lot of gamers, we prefer to play our games on one platform, right? If you're a Sony gamer, you're a Sony gamer. You like playing Sony exclusives day one. You might have to wait for some timed exclusives, but for the most part, you enjoy playing a select few of games on that console. So the question of should you buy a PlayStation 5 Pro or should you build a gaming PC would really depend on the type of gamer you are and the type of games you want to play. Could you build a PC equivalent to a PlayStation 5 Pro? Absolutely. Will it run or say achieve some of the things that Sony is, sharing that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be capable of? Well, that's where things get a little tricky. Another one of the biggest, I guess you could say, enhancements or improvements with the PlayStation 5 Pro is its artificial AI upscaling technology, or what we've previously called corporate console magic. And most of the games that will be patched with free software updates, aka making them PS5 Pro enhanced, are all for the most part third-party partners for Sony, and their games can be found and arguably ran better with more control over on the PC. Hogwarts Legacy, the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows, Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2. Sony is introducing PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, kind of like FSR and DLSS's obscure nomenclatures, but essentially it's an AI-driven upscaling technology that adds extra or an extraordinary amount of detail to, say, an image or whatever is going on in the scene in a game. Again, back to that corporate console magic. And this also takes me back to my initial argument with consoles, and that's, I prefer gaming at a native resolution. Say if your monitor is 1080p, you want your games outputted and rendered at native 1080p. You don't want any upscaling or image trickery going on in the background unless you absolutely positively need your game to accomplish a smoother, stable frame rate, or you're trying to enhance the image quality a little bit. But going in, you don't even have this choice, from my understanding, with the PS5 Pro. It's going to do this to enhance older games, and it's going to do this to achieve that super sharp image quality that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to market to justify its $699 price. Now, some of these technologies are available in PC hardware, more so over on the AMD side, being that FSR is an open source AI technology, so it's more commonly used and more it's more widespread. You can find it in more games that support it. And then you have NVIDIA's DLSS and frame generation. Frame generation is only available on RTX 40 series cards. So initially you're looking at a pay barrier or cost barrier of somewhere between $300 to $400, depending on the graphics card you're looking at. And that's a little on the lower end side. So when you consider you're buying hardware for that cost or that price, you don't want to have to compromise on your image settings, right? If you paid $800 for a PC and you were told, hey, you got to lower some of your settings to achieve a stable FPS, you might be looking at your builder or system integrator with a little bit of a side eye, because you want the maximal performance allotted with the money or budget you put into your system. Well, over the PS5 Pro at $700 USD, this is not going to be an option. Again, this is something you're going to have to just go with in nearly every game you play. And there's ray tracing. A lot of PC gamers have yet to really lock in and dial up ray tracing in the games that support them. You take a significant hit over on PC when you enable ray tracing, and like I said in previous videos, and we will cover this topic down the road here on this channel, but I said this in previous videos, if you're going to enable ray tracing in some way, shape, or form, then you likely want to enable DLSS 2 to compensate for that FPS hit or that frame rate hit you're going to take. And then you have to even ask yourself, how are these ray tracing features enhancing my gaming experience? How much detail is it adding to the scene? How immersive is it making this game? How much more do I want to play it based off me enabling ray tracing? It might look pretty for the first couple minutes, and this really depends on the game. It might look pretty for the first couple minutes, and then it could very much well get indistinguishable between ray tracing turned off and ray tracing turned on. This is another caveat that really depends on the game that supports ray tracing and the hardware you're trying to run it on. Sure, you won't have this problem with the PS5 Pro, and there are a few games that do support ray tracing over on the console market. But for the most part, if the game that you play or the games that you primarily play, if they don't support ray tracing, then this feature isn't going to impact your buying decision, right? So again, it's really going to boil down to if ray tracing is important for you and your gaming experience, and will it justify your decision to pull the trigger on, say, a PS5 Pro, a $700 console, $200 more than the PlayStation 5 retailed at. I mean, how much more of a sharper image quality or stable FPS are you going to get to even warrant yourself upgrading to a PS5 Pro? Chances are, if you have a PlayStation 5, you're going to be perfectly fine, right? Like there won't be a need for you to upgrade to a PS5 Pro. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money, but I could make a better recommendation if you do have a PS5, and that's build a gaming PC with that $700 US budget. Now, you may not be able to say game at 4K and do all these amazing things that Sony is touting with the PlayStation 5 Pro. But here's the kicker. Yeah, you'll pay more for a gaming PC versus a PS5 Pro. It may not be able to handle all the games native at similar numbers that the PS5 Pro can achieve and pull off, but the gaming PC will be able to do so much more. You will be able to play games that aren't exclusive or limited to just one platform. And again, if you play a lot of Sony games, a lot of those games will be available over on the PC platform. Horizon Forbidden West and Dawn, Days Gone, God of War Ragnarok, just to name a few. There's many others, but they will be available over on PC. Final Fantasy 16, I believe, was just announced that it's making its way over onto the PC, right? So if you're even considering, should you buy a PlayStation 5 Pro and you have a PS5, I raised a better question, and that's, should you consider upgrading or buying a companion system like a gaming PC? That way you can game in slightly better fidelity, you have better graphic options and better, more control over your resolution, right? And other many, perks to being a PC gamer. RGB for one of them. But again, if playing Sony games is something you are hyper focused on doing, then upgrading to a PS5 Pro would make even more sense for you if you skipped out on the PS5 altogether. Because if you remember a time, they were being sold at about $1,100 to $1,200 online. They were being scalped like crazy during the chip shortage. And now you can maybe pick one up used over on the used market or secondhand market for about $350, $400 USD, somewhere along the lines there. So that could be a smart upgrade for you if you don't have the budget funds yet to build a comparable gaming PC. You can't really build a gaming PC at $350, $400 USD that's going to run games like the PS5 Pro can. If you're hitting the used market, there might be some things you might be able to finagle, right? But just hitting that number could prove to be extremely difficult, and you're still going to have to compromise in some areas. For example, the PS5 Pro will have a 2 terabyte storage unit, right? Which some might argue may not even still be enough, but it's going to have a 2 terabyte internal, storage drive. To add that to your system, I mean, you're looking at a little over $100 USD for a good M.2 or SSD, right? And if you want faster storage speeds comparable to the PS5, then yes, you're going to want to go with a Gen 4 SSD storage solution, just so you can have or take advantage of those fast read and write speeds and reduce your load screen times. But if you really want to play some of the 8,500 plus PS4 titles that will have enhanced support, game boost is what Sony's calling it, on the PS5 Pro, like you have a long and extensive Sony catalog that you really want to jump down and clear up and get caught up on, then the PS5 Pro could make some sense to you at $700 USD. But do know that you can build a solid gaming PC over on, say, assembling your parts on the used market, or even finding a decent mid-range, dare I say it, but they do serve a purpose, much like consoles do. You can find yourself a comparable pre-built for somewhere along the lines there. So again, looking back at if the PS5 Pro makes sense or not at its current price point, that's determined by the type of games you play and how you wish to experience them. Because a lot of the games that are available or will be available on the PS5 Pro will be available on the PC in some way, shape, or form. Typically, their games can be found on Steam, one of the biggest launcher platforms on PC. So ask yourself, what are you prioritizing when it comes to your targeted gaming experience? And if the PS5 Pro is worth it or not, won't even be a question for you. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. Just want to do some quick housekeeping. We have been live streaming over on the infant channel, the SMT gaming channel. I'll leave the link down in the description box below. If you're into super long form live streaming content, gaming content, if you will, you're definitely going to want to subscribe to that channel. We're going to migrate all of the gaming live streaming sessions over there, but we still will be running live streams here on the channel. It'll just be in the form of our live podcast. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. Now that's all I got for this one. Hit the like button for me and still subscribe if you're new here to the VOD channel, if you will, the VOD channel, if you will, and check out the SMT gaming channel either at the pinned comment section below or down in the description box below. But it's down there either way. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.